Games that saved their franchises. I will start this video with what is probably one of the most controversial topics for longtime fans of the Resident Evil franchise. Many prefer the gameplay with the terrible tank controls that the older games had and the fixed cameras, where the angles were predefined and changed automatically as the character moved through the environment. And that style worked very well at the time because of the technical limitations of the PlayStation. However, with the advancement of technology and the popularization of free cameras and third-person perspectives, games like Resident Evil Code Veronica and Resident Evil Zero, despite having switched to that camera that moves following our character through the environments, were still presenting a somewhat repetitive gameplay compared to the previous ones. Of course, they are far from being bad games, but they felt a bit dated. That's when Resident Evil 4 arrived, changing everything. The game practically left aside the old style and brought an over-the-shoulder camera, a much more direct and easier to control combat, and a much faster and more dynamic gameplay. It wasn't just an improvement, it was as if the game had been recreated from scratch. This made many more people start playing and liking the franchise. The impact was so big that it not only improved Resident Evil, but also influenced several other games that came after. And with the huge success in sales and reviews, the franchise came back strong, becoming one of the biggest franchises in the gaming world. The Doom franchise started in 1993, being one of the most important games in history, and soon after continued with Doom 2 in 1994, maintaining the success. However, over time, the series lost strength, and in 2004 Doom 3 was released, which changed the style a lot by focusing more on horror, with slower gameplay and dark environments. This ended up dividing many fans for not seeming like classic Doom anymore. The problem is that after that, the franchise stayed for more than 10 years without a relevant main game, while the FPS market changed completely, with more cinematic games, such as Call of Duty itself. It was then that in 2016, a new Doom arrived, bringing changes that made this franchise have one of the best gameplays ever made. The game removed the automatic health regeneration and introduced the glory kill system, where the player needs to execute enemies up close to recover health. In addition, the game eliminated the style of hiding behind cover and started to encourage constant movement, with enemies dropping ammo and resources during the fight, forcing the player to move forward all the time. The maps were built as open arenas, reinforcing this fast pace even more. At the same time, the game brought back classic elements of the franchise, such as high speed, iconic weapons, and a gameplay focused on direct action, but all adapted to a modern standard. Unlike many games of the time, the Doom of 2016 almost does not interrupt the player with cutscenes, keeping the action continuous. The result was a great success in criticism and sales, which not only brought the franchise back to relevance after more than a decade, but also opened the way for Doom Eternal, consolidating once and for all this new moment of the series.